And I never learned how to get students and learn all the marketing stuff. Like I was only good at the teaching part. That's what I felt. Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna make this. That's one of the reasons that I started to work with you. It just made me realize that, okay, like there's a lot to learn for me here, more than just teaching. Like I made less money than what I did when I was still working at the school. I made it so cheap, but then they think, oh, this is a very good deal for this product. And then I tried to increase the price like gradually. And then I started seeing fewer and fewer students. That's when I reached out to you, and then we revamped the course where they pay about 300. They're actually happy to pay that after we do the strategy call. And they would think, oh, I think this teacher can help me. They don't mind paying that much. So like in terms of just the general knowledge, I can read books, I can watch YouTube videos, but I can't necessarily implement them. And by having someone who's been there, who's been where I am right now, I can help anticipate some things. I think that's what I find very valuable. And don't expect things to be easy. I thought it was going to be easy. I was wrong. But it doesn't mean that you should not try. Again, you really got to focus on the goal. Like for me, I have this kind of dream life that I want in the future, and that's what I focus on. I can do it because I see the end goal. I think people are willing to pay a lot if they're confident that you can solve their problems. Whereas if you say, hey, you get 10 meetings for this much money, and then they look elsewhere, oh, I get 15 meetings for the same amount of money, then obviously they will choose the cheaper one. But if you're focusing, hey, look, this is how I can solve your problem, here are the steps that you need to take, it's not something that people just can find anywhere. And many people would pay like a lot of money for that guidance.
We're here with another member of our Teacher Accelerator program. This is Vendi. Vendi, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
All right. You're all the way across the world, right? I'm in Canada, you're in Indonesia.
Indonesia, yeah.
All right, doing a little time zone gymnastics here. I think everyone's always interested in how people get started and how they find a niche and stuff like this. Maybe you can just tell people a little bit about your business, your niche, and what you're doing.
Yeah, so right now I teach IELTS, and I focus on teaching students the writing and the speaking section of the IELTS academic module.
Right on. And how did you, through the program, we always talk about like dating a niche and helping people explore that you might not, the first niche you choose might not be your one that you use forever or work with forever. What was your experience with that? How did IELTS, academic IELTS, and then the speaking and writing become the one that you wanted to focus on? What tips or tricks, or can you share your experience of solidifying that niche for you?
Yeah, I've first started working as a teacher, or this test prep tutor more specifically, back in 2019. So I worked at a test prep center, and there I taught all kinds of different tests like TOEFL, IELTS, SAT, TOEIC, different types of English tests. And I think about a year or two into working there, I decided that I wanted to focus on IELTS, just because one, I had taken the test a couple of times before because I had to do it for my study. Yeah,
Right.
like I was already familiar with the test, the format, and how to get a good score. And also it was actually, I think, the most popular English test in Indonesia. So yeah, so from then I wanted to focus on IELTS. And then after quitting that job and going solo, I thought, okay, like for listening and reading, I think not many people struggle with that, because that's something that they can just practice on their own most of the time. Whereas with writing and speaking, not only are they the most difficult sections for many people, but like students need feedback that they can't improve them on their own.
For
So
sure.
that's why I decided to focus on the two sections.
Perfect. Yeah, productive skills are always the ones that people feel a little bit self-conscious or want feedback on, as you can said, right?
Mhm.
The reading and listening,
Mhm.
life is the feedback. They get the answer right or wrong. The feedback is
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
All right. You mentioned something important there, Randy, I think, about when you quit the school and decided to go solo. A lot of people listening may be in that same position. A lot of people we work with work at a school and have a business. Some people like yourself wanted to leave the school and just have a business. Can you walk people through maybe what was, or some of the deciding factors in you thinking, okay, I want to go solo. I want to have my business. That's what I want to do. And what led you to that decision?
I think it's not the usual scenario, because I liked my job. It was a lot of hours, but I didn't mind. I didn't mind the working hours, and it was good money as well compared to what other teachers in other centers made here in my city. But like at one point, it's just more like a personal decision because my wife and I wanted to to build a certain kind of future. And it's only possible if I fully work online. Whereas the center that I worked for, they switched to online during the pandemic, but then they were coming back to just like full in-person lessons. And
Right.
for me, that really didn't work out. So yeah, like I didn't really, I could stay, but that means it's just delaying the inevitable. So yeah, like for me, like,
Interesting.
yeah, this is it. Yeah, I had to start my own thing.
Fascinating. What I think a lot of people go through that kind of mindset, and some people maybe don't actually then actually make the decision to actually do it. What was like, was that something that you contemplated with your wife for
Oh,
maybe a long time and then did it? Or was it like what led up to
yeah,
the actual, okay, we're doing it?
definitely money.
Yeah.
But we had a certain lifestyle and going from making, I would say like a lot, again, like relative to what other people made, like a lot and consistent salary as well, right? Like I know what to expect every month.
Right.
And then going from that to, okay, we don't know if we're going to make any money this month. That's scary. So we had to save up for several months just to make sure that if we don't make any money for the first year, like we can still survive. So
Okay.
that was the main like challenge.
Nice. Okay. So you planned this well in advance then. So like even a year, it sounds like a year before you did it, you decided you guys wanted to do this and then okay, let's put a plan in place, at least
Yeah.
financially, to make sure like a safety net essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then you start the business, you're doing it. How did it go initially? What challenges did you face early on?
It was an eye-opening experience, definitely, because I thought I was good. Like back in the center where I taught, like I was one of the top teachers there. So I thought, okay, shouldn't be too difficult, like getting students and teaching. But then I was wrong. Yeah, I was just, yeah, I guess the first thing was just to find students because I was never into, and I never learned how to get students and learn all the marketing stuff. Like I was only good at the teaching part. So obviously that's a challenge that like to get students. So
For
that
sure.
was it's the first thing that I realized. Okay, yeah, this is not. Like that's what I felt. Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna make this.
All right. Okay. So right off the bat, like some main challenges, and did you feel like you made the wrong decision maybe? How did you feel at the beginning?
No, I didn't feel that I made the wrong decision. It's just like unexpected. I thought it was not going to be as difficult. But yeah, like that's one of the reasons that I decided to work with you to get a more like holistic like overview of the business and not just about the teaching.
Right.
Yeah, it just made me realize that okay, like there's a lot to learn for me here, more than just the teaching.
That's interesting. Okay. So then, yeah, we met, we started working together, and what's maybe can you highlight a couple of things that worked for you or that you were able to implement that moved you from not just the teaching part to having a more, I like the word you said, holistic, a holistic view of the business. What's one or two things that you think people should know or that you can highlight that worked for you?
On top of the marketing stuff that I mentioned, I think creating a course was also not as easy as I thought. So by the time I reached out to you guys, I think I had already had something going for like a couple of months. But at the time, the challenge was that I ran it like every month. So every month I had to find new students. So that was the first problem. And then another problem was it turned out that a month was not enough for my students to see any improvements because it's
Right.
quite intensive to pack like everything that I had to teach within a month. And yeah, and at the time, like I didn't know any other way of conducting a course. The only other way would be just like doing a synchronous course online, but that's not something that I really wanted to do to start with. So yeah, like getting out of that cycle was difficult because I didn't really know like any other way of doing a course. And then when I got into the TAB program, like, and then you showed me the different models, the evergreen models, and then how the evergreen model could be implemented in my course. And that changed things because now it's well, getting students, like students can enroll at any time. So that's like, that takes the burden of like having to find like new students every month. And also it gives more time for my students as well to just to learn at their own pace. And then if they need to extend, there's a possibility for that as well. Whereas like with my old model, like it wasn't really possible.
Yeah, I think you were doing, like, as you said, you were doing like, it was 4 weeks,
Hmm.
like a power boot camp. You start on the first of
Yeah.
the month, you end on the end of the month. And that like can put a lot of pressure like on getting clients, not just for teachers, but any business is always like the hardest, I think, part of having any
Hmm.
business, just getting new people. So every four
Hmm.
weeks, if you're doing that, it can be tough. And I like that you said, building a course wasn't as simple as you thought. I think a lot of people say the same thing. It was for us too. When the first time we started building courses, we had the same experience. Oh, this isn't as simple. Like conceptually in your mind, you have like an idea, but to implement it can be quite hard. So now you're
Hmm.
doing Evergreen, so people can join anytime. That's loosened up that pressure a little bit. Sounds like it's loosened for the students as well, where they can maybe go through it at more ease. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Uh-huh.
For sure. And then tell me, because you mentioned something at the end there that's important, I think, for people to know, that you said students can continue. Because when we started working together, I remember I asked you something along the lines
Right.
of what happens after 4 weeks if they want to continue. And you said something about they don't. So
Right.
what happens now?
Yeah. So yeah, with the old model, there was no option to continue because again, like every month I'm teaching the same thing. So if they just join the next month, they're just gonna learn the same thing. And also, I think I told you as well that was one student who I followed up after my course. I think it was like a month or 2 months after, whether he had taken a test or not, and he said that, oh, I had to take a course from a different provider because I still needed to improve. Yeah, and but with the new model, it's more like a membership, I would say. So it's you purchase the program, you get 2 months of access to working with me. And then, yeah, if they need more practice, they need more feedback, they can just extend their access. So
Wonderful.
that makes it, yeah. And it also makes it like each client has more value to me rather than just 1 month and done. So now like some people, they have more values to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a tricky model to implement because it's two different purchases, right? You have the front end and then the renewal. With
Hmm.
language spaces, like that's the benefit that we have as business owners because the language process was always ongoing. In your case, with test prep niches, obviously there's a finite ending. They're going to write the test at some time
Hmm.
and they're going to pass it at some time and then they don't need you anymore. But until that time, there's a lot of opportunity, of course, as well.
Hmm.
Okay, so the model was the main thing or one of the things that really improved. Would there be something else that you'd mention as well?
I would say, I guess part of the marketing is the strategy call. That's something that I didn't do before. And like before, I found it really hard because I knew that I had a good thing going on. Like I'm a good teacher, I could teach this, but the problem was how to get people to know that
Right.
when like in I advertise on social media mostly. Yeah, like where my competitions compete on price. So I kind of followed that at the beginning. Okay, maybe make it cheaper to get people's attention. But then, yeah, like with the clearer customer journey, how to get people send some inquiries, and then I filter them. And if I think they're a good fit, then hey, let's hop on a call and look at your writing or your speaking. And then from there, they actually see the quality of the feedback that I give, the quality of my teaching. And like from there, I think most of the people that have signed up, they didn't have any problems with the price, even though it was now more expensive than the old model.
Right. Okay. So started to qualify prospects, it sounds like, not
Yeah.
just because remind me, I think you're signing people up through maybe a website or a chat or something before not talking to them first. Is that I don't quite remember, is that right?
But yeah, so what happened was I first on social media, and then they usually ask some questions, and then I just answer the question. Hey, this is what you get for this price. So again, more focusing on like the how. Hey, you get this many
Right.
meetings
More
for the price.
transactional, right?
Yeah, and then that's it. And then they say, yeah, interested? No, okay. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then let's talk about the price because that's I think is always a point of when people start a business or are moving into business, income and revenue is important. You mentioned you were competing on price before, which is always tough, especially in a test prep space, which is highly competitive. So it is the race to the bottom easily. Oh, you don't have to use the real numbers if you don't want to, but how you're able to, you had a price in the fixed model. And then I know I recommended like, hey, I think you should do this and do this. And I know there's always a bit of hesitation. Like, I'm not sure people will pay that. Tripled your prices within a very short time, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. So like with the old model, because it was only a month, and I split between writing and speaking programs into two different programs, and I did just like about $100 each, and that was what I thought was quite competitive in terms of price. But then it wasn't. I didn't make enough money. Like I made less money than what I did when I was still working at the school. So yeah, but then like after each course, like when I asked my students for feedback, they were quite happy with what they got. That's the frustrating thing for me is, okay, I made it so cheap, but then they think, oh, this is a very good deal for this price. I guess for this price, I get this quality of teaching. But then if I increase the price, then no one would even ask. So there's like kind of a dilemma. Oh yeah, I started with like $100 for a program, and then I tried to increase the price like gradually, and then I started seeing fewer and fewer students, and that's when I reached out to you, and then we revamped the course into a more, again, like a subscription model where they pay about $300 for 2 months, and and they're actually happy to pay that, like after we do the strategy call, and then they see that, oh, actually I think, like they say, like, they would think, oh, I think this teacher can help me. The kind of feedback
Right.
that I'm getting here is good, and like they don't mind paying that much.
All right. So going from 100 to 300, and then you talked earlier about lifetime value of the customer, right? So they pay the 300 for
Yeah.
the 8 weeks, and then a lot of them are
And
paying
then
again
some of them,
afterwards,
some
right?
of them even extend. Yeah.
So then the lifetime value is there for you as the business, and then of course they're getting great value as well. That
Hmm.
psychological kind of gymnastics, I think everyone goes through. If I increase the price, people won't come. What can you say to people listening or watching that, yeah, you went from 100 to 300, which in your context is fairly significant. Those are US
Hmm.
dollars comparison. But then you said there's no resistance. People are happy to pay because they see the value. Someone's watching and is worried about raising their prices. What advice would you have for that person?
I think the focus should be more on like how you can solve their problems rather than what you will give them for a certain amount of money. I think people are willing to pay a lot if they're confident that you can solve their problems. Whereas if you say, hey, you get 10 meetings for this much money, and then they look elsewhere, oh, I get 15 meetings for the same amount of money, then obviously they will choose the cheaper one. But if you're focusing, hey, look, this is how I can solve your problem, here are the steps that you need to take, I think, it's not something that people just can find anywhere. And many people would pay like a lot of money for that guidance.
Well said. Said. I think that's why we always say the problem you solve is not linguistic, right? It's just focus on the problem that people have, and then maybe the language part comes into play as through those steps as you mentioned, right? But what is the problem
Hmm.
that you're solving for people? Awesome. Okay. And then I guess for people that haven't worked with us, Vendi, maybe are interested in the TAP program or have seen it somewhere, what's one thing that for you makes it different, or just what's one thing that's a differentiator that you liked working with us, or what's something that people should know about it?
Yeah, I think one thing that I real is the personalized guidance. Yes, you have the modules, but I think what I find most important is like when I have a certain question or certain problem, like you can make some suggestions on what I can do. And I think that's what I find valuable, because I feel like in terms of just the general knowledge, I can read books, I can watch YouTube videos, but I can't necessarily implement them. And by having someone who's been there, who's been where I am right now, and can help me anticipate some things, I think that's what I find very valuable.
Amazing. All right. Perfect. And for someone who's watching and listening who was where you were previously, starting a business, maybe
Hmm.
not getting as many students as they want to, maybe getting discouraged, what advice would you have for that person?
Oh, I would say try different things because even right now, yes, I've grown from where I was last year. Like I'm far from done or having the perfect course. I think it's always, yeah, like the whole thing is a process. If you fail at doing something now, just try something different and try until you make it. Like that's really what it is. And don't expect things to be easy. I thought it was going to be easy. I was wrong. But it doesn't mean that you should not try. Again, you really got to focus on the goal. Like for me, I have this kind of dream life that I want in the future, and that's what I focus on. The process now is just really, like, for me, like I can do it because I see the end goal.
Love it. The North Star, right? Keep aligned with that. Awesome. Thank you very much for this. This was great. And we'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Yeah, no problem.